Welcome to another deep dive. We're really excited to be exploring Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last today.
Yeah, a fascinating book.
Yeah, and we're going to be uncovering what makes some teams just thrive while others just can't seem to get it together. And especially in today's world, it's a very timely book.
Oh, it is. And, it's amazing how Sinek connects those ancient survival instincts of ours to what's happening in offices today.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you realize that good leadership, it's not just some business skill you can pick up. It really taps into something much deeper, something much more human.
Yeah, absolutely. And he kicks off the book with this incredible story about Johnny Bravo,
Oh, yeah.
an Air Force pilot in Afghanistan.
Love that story.
So he's up in his cockpit, totally safe.
Right.
And then he hears this Mayday call from a special ops team that's pinned down by enemy fire.
Yeah. And the thing
This
is,
intense situation.
he wasn't ordered to help. Johnny Bravo could have just stayed safe up there in the air,
Yeah.
Followed protocol. But he didn't. He felt this urge, this overwhelming urge to protect those soldiers on the ground.
It's powerful.
It is.
Yeah, so he ends up flying this outdated, like literally ancient B-1 bomber
Crazy.
into this valley,
Filled with tracer fire.
risking his own life.
Yeah, for these guys he doesn't even know.
Yeah. Using maps from the 80s to try and help these guys and just buy them a few more seconds.
It's intense.
Yeah, it really makes you think, what makes someone do something like that?
It speaks to that really deep human need we all have for safety and belonging,
Right.
for being part of something bigger than yourself, a group that has your back no matter what.
Yeah.
It's primal. And as Sinek argues, that same need is just as important in our workplaces as it was back then. Think about it. 80% of people are dissatisfied with their jobs.
Wow, 80%.
That stat, that's from Deloitte, really makes you wonder what we're doing wrong.
It's huge. Yeah.
It is.
And it's almost like we've forgotten how to build those really strong, those supportive teams that were so essential for survival way back when.
It's true. And that's where the example of Bob Chapman comes in. He's the CEO of Barry Wemmeler.
Yeah.
And he really transformed his company by putting employee well-being first.
Yeah, even before profits.
Yeah, ahead of profits.
That's bold.
It is. And what's really fascinating is how that approach actually led to greater success for the company. Remember how his employees were donating vacation days to help colleagues in need? That didn't come from some memo from corporate. That came from the employees themselves.
Right.
It emerged from this culture of trust and caring that Bob Chapman had created.
Yeah.
And that's the power of what Sinek calls the circle of safety.
Such a good term. So powerful.
It is. When people feel safe and like they belong, they're not just more productive, they're happier, they're more engaged, they're more willing to just give it their all.
Yeah.
And it's not about warm and fuzzy feelings. It really has a direct impact on the bottom line.
Yeah.
But to really understand how this works, I think we need to dive into the science behind it all.
Okay, let's do it. Sinek talks about these, and I'm going to use air quotes here, selfish and selfless chemicals that are driving our behavior. And I'm really curious to hear more about that.
Yeah. Well, think of dopamine as that selfish chemical.
Okay.
The one that pushes us to achieve, to conquer, to get things done.
I like that. The conqueror chemical.
It is. It's what motivates us to hit deadlines, to strive for that promotion. It's powerful stuff, but it can also be very addictive.
So is that what's fueling that always on, super competitive work culture that so many of us are struggling with?
Exactly. And the problem is our workplaces often overemphasize the dopamine, the getting ahead, while neglecting those selfless chemicals like serotonin and oxytocin. Serotonin, that's about pride, status, belonging to something bigger than yourself. And oxytocin, that's the chemical of trust and bonding, the deep human connection.
So way back when our ancestors were facing down saber-toothed tigers, these chemicals work together, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like dopamine pushed them to find food and shelter, while serotonin and oxytocin made sure they were cooperating and building a community so they could survive.
Exactly. That's the key.
Yeah.
But in our modern world, that balance is off. We've become so fixated on individual achievement, on hitting those numbers, that we've forgotten how important it is to actually cultivate those deeper bonds, the trust, the belonging.
And what's the impact of that? What happens when we kind of ignore those selfless chemicals?
Well, for one thing, it just creates a ton of stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies and minds just weren't designed to be in that constant state of dopamine-driven striving.
Right.
It's why we're seeing so much burnout, so much depression, even heart disease, and it's all linked to job dissatisfaction. It's taking a huge toll on our mental and physical health.
Yeah, it makes sense. We've all felt that pressure to perform, to constantly be on, even when it just feels impossible to keep going.
I know I have.
So how did we get here? What happened to that ancient recipe for success? That balance between individual drive and having each other's backs.
That's where the concept of abstraction comes in.
Abstraction. Tell me more about that.
As organizations just grow larger and technology keeps advancing, it becomes so easy to distance ourselves from the human impact of our actions.
Yeah.
We start treating people like numbers on a spreadsheet, and we're all about metrics and profits,
Right.
rather than thinking about the actual people, the individuals behind all of it.
Yeah. It makes me think about that Milgram experiment.
Oh, yeah.
Just a chilling example of how easily we can kind of turn off our empathy when we're not connected to the consequences of our actions.
Right.
The volunteers were more likely to inflict pain on others when they were separated, when they couldn't see or hear the person suffering.
Totally. And that same thing can happen in the workplace.
Oh,
When
absolutely.
we're just staring at these spreadsheets, fixated on quarterly reports.
Right.
It's easy to forget that real people's lives are being impacted by what we decide.
Have you ever felt that disconnect in your own work? Like maybe when you had to make a difficult decision that affected your team, or were you just so focused on hitting some target that you kind of lost sight of the bigger picture?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's tough.
And it's something that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Cynic argues that this disconnect can actually lead to some pretty serious, pretty dangerous consequences.
Okay.
Think about the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah.
Citigroup, this massive organization,
Mm-hmm.
was trading these incredibly complex mortgage-backed securities.
Right.
These were basically bundles of debt that were so abstract, so removed from the actual homeowners, that it became way too easy to just ignore the potential fallout.
Yeah. It's like they were playing a game with other people's lives
Yes.
just for the sake of profits.
Yeah,
And then when the whole thing collapsed, it was real people who lost their homes, their savings, their livelihoods.
absolutely. And it's not just in finance. Think about Apple, a company known for innovation, beautiful design.
Right.
But they were using these complex tax loopholes to avoid paying billions of dollars in taxes. And legally, maybe they were in the clear. But ethically, it raises some big questions.
Yeah, it seems like they were benefiting from all this public infrastructure, from a really well-educated workforce, but not contributing their fair share.
Exactly.
It just makes it feel like the system is rigged, like the rules don't apply to everyone.
Yeah. And that just erodes trust. And it has this really corrosive effect on society as a whole.
Right.
It makes it harder to create those circles of safety that Cynic talks about.
Right.
Those environments where people feel safe and supported, where they feel like they belong.
Yeah. Yeah. So if abstraction is the problem, then what's the solution? How do we bring back that human connection, that sense of belonging?
Well, Cynic points to this fascinating research by Robin Dunbar. He studied the limits of these meaningful relationships.
Okay.
And he found that humans can only really maintain about 150 close relationships.
150.
Yeah, it's called Dunbar's number.
Huh. That's like the size of a small village. So what does that mean for these giant companies, these organizations with thousands, even millions of employees? Are we fighting a losing battle here?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Dunbar's number doesn't mean that we can't have any positive interactions beyond that 150. But it means that we really have to be intentional about creating those smaller, tighter teams where people can connect on a deeper level.
So instead of these huge, sprawling corporate empires, we need to create environments that feel more like a village.
Well, exactly. More human scale.
I like that.
Yeah. It's about promoting face-to-face interactions, making sure there's really open communication,
Right.
and building a culture where people feel valued, where they feel respected.
Yeah.
It's about bringing back those selfless chemicals, that serotonin and oxytocin,
Right.
the ones that really fuel collaboration and innovation.
Okay, so I'm starting to see the bigger picture, but how do we actually do this? It's one thing to talk about the circle of safety, but how do leaders put these ideas into practice?
That's where Cynic gets really practical. He lays out 4 key leadership lessons in Leaders Eat Last.
Okay, I'm ready.
And the first one is about leading with integrity.
Integrity. That seems pretty straightforward.
It is.
But what does it actually look like in a real workplace?
It means telling the truth, even when it's hard.
Right.
It means being the example for ethical behavior,
Yeah.
transparency, accountability. It's about choosing to do what's right, even when it hurts your bottom line.
Okay.
Cynic has this great example with Ralph Lauren, the fashion company.
Yeah.
They found out that their subsidiary in Argentina had been bribing officials.
Oh, wow.
And instead of trying to hide it, they came clean.
Good for them.
Yeah, they admitted their mistake, paid the fines, and face the music.
It's so rare to see that,
It is.
especially with a big company like that.
I know, right? It probably cost them a lot of money,
Yeah.
but they earned something much more valuable.
Yeah.
Trust. It showed their employees and the public that they were willing to do the right thing no matter what. Yeah. And that's the kind of leadership that really inspires loyalty and respect.
Yeah. Okay. So integrity is the foundation.
It is.
What's the next leadership lesson?
Focus on people, not numbers. Focus on people, not numbers.
That idea seems so counterintuitive in today's world. You
Yeah.
know, it's all about metrics, KPI, shareholder value. Like, how can you prioritize people and still get results?
Well, Sinek would say you can't have one without the other.
Okay.
He uses Jim Sinegal as an example, the co-founder of Costco.
Oh, yeah.
Sinegal was famous for taking care of his employees.
Right.
Higher wages, better benefits, a culture of respect.
So different from how most companies think.
I know, right? It might seem kind of counterintuitive, especially in that really competitive world of retail.
Yeah.
But it actually led to massive success for Costco.
Because when employees are happy and engaged, they provide better customer service, they're more productive,
Right.
they stick with the company longer.
Exactly. It's a win-win. And it goes right back to that circle of safety. When people feel valued and respected, they're more likely to go the extra mile, to be more creative, to do their best work.
Yeah.
And it's not just about being nice to people. It's about building a culture where everyone feels like they're part of something bigger than themselves, something that matters.
Okay, so we've got integrity, a focus on people.
Mm-hmm.
What's that third lesson?
Give time, not just money.
Okay.
We often think that we can just throw money at a problem and it'll go away.
Yeah.
But when it comes to building real relationships,
Right.
the kind of relationships that make that circle of safety work,
Yeah.
time and energy are way more important.
That makes me think about when a friend is going through something tough, Sure, you can give them some cash to help out, but actually being there for them,
Yeah.
offering your time and support, it's different.
Absolutely. It's about actually being present,
Right.
about putting in the effort to build those relationships.
Yeah.
The ones that create a strong foundation for the whole organization. Leaders, they need to be around, they need to be approachable, willing to spend time with people,
Yeah.
not just in those formal meetings, but in those everyday interactions where you build real trust.
So it's more about those small, everyday acts of caring and connection than some big, flashy gesture.
Totally. And that brings us to that fourth leadership lesson, which is all about those real connections.
Okay.
Encouraging those face-to-face interactions.
Right.
Creating opportunities for people to actually get to know each other, like on a human level.
Yeah, Sinek has this great story about two members of Congress.
Oh, yeah.
One's a Republican, the other's a Democrat.
Right back when there was some civility in Washington.
Exactly. This is a while back.
It is.
And these two guys just happened to be shopping for souvenirs at the same time.
Right.
And that simple act of just kind of breaking bread together,
Mm-hmm.
seeing each other as human beings, not just their political labels,
Yeah.
it sparked this friendship that lasted for years.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the most divided environments,
Yeah.
human connection is always possible.
It's hopeful.
Yeah.
And that those connections can lead to unexpected things, like building bridges and finding common ground. So
Mhm.
we've got these 4 leadership lessons: integrity, focus on people, giving time, and building those real connections.
They seem simple,
Yeah.
but it takes real effort to put them into practice.
Yeah. Especially if you're used to doing things the old way, top down, metrics driven.
It's a challenge, for sure.
Right.
But it's also a huge opportunity. Sinek says that we're at a turning point.
Okay.
We can keep going down this path of being isolated, fixated on numbers, addicted to dopamine,
Yeah.
or we can choose to find that balance again,
Hmm.
to rediscover the power of real connection,
Right.
to build a more sustainable, more fulfilling future.
It all comes back to that idea that leadership isn't about your title or your position.
Right.
It's a choice you make.
It is.
It's choosing to put people first, to create those circles of safety, to nurture those selfless chemicals that really make us human.
And it's a choice that every single one of us can make.
That's a great point.
It doesn't matter what your job title is.
Yeah.
We can all choose to lead in this way.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Leaders Eat Last,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with this. What can you do starting today to cultivate this kind of leadership in your own world? Maybe it's speaking up when you see someone being treated unfairly. Maybe it's making more of an effort to connect with a coworker.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just choosing to really listen to someone.
Listen with empathy.
Yeah,
with understanding.
exactly. Because even the smallest act of courage, of kindness, of genuine connection, it can have a ripple effect.
It can.
Don't underestimate your power to create positive change.
Love that.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive
Yeah, this is great.
into leadership and human behavior. We hope you got some new insights
Mm.
and that you feel inspired to build your own circle of safety in your work and life.
Until next time.
See you on the next deep dive.